morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Sorry for the delayed start. We were having some technical difficulties, but we are here on a Friday, and I hope everyone is doing well. Today, I am speaking with Ann Wyatt. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ann. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Megan. It's an honor to be here. So thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So I like to start off each conversation with just a brief introduction of yourself where you provide some information about who you are and what you do and how you help manufacturers. So can you start off by telling us who Ann Wyatt is?
Sure. Well, this is a very complicated question, but no. So my name is Ann Wyatt. I have my own recruiting agency, Ann Wyatt Recruiting, and I started recruiting really while I was still employed with the state of Kentucky and have a workforce development background. So when I was working there, I was very inspired. We had a lot of startup companies and greenfield sites coming into the area, and I thought, I feel like I could do a really good job recruiting. So at that point, I started Ann Wyatt Recruiting, and since then, I try to blend technology and digital strategies in order to provide a better candidate experience and attract quality talent for my clients.
So do you help companies who are outside of manufacturing as well to find good employees for their companies, or is it mostly manufacturing that you're focusing on with your recruiting issue?
I only work manufacturing.
Is there a reason for that, or is it something like when you first started out? Because Ann Wyatt Recruiting is obviously your company because it's your first and last name. So when you started your own company, was that your goal to just target manufacturers as part of your business strategy?
Yes. And I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I am very passionate about manufacturing. When I worked at the Career Center for the state of Kentucky, I was solely dedicated to employment services. So I handled all of their job orders. So every healthcare, manufacturing, customer service and retail, everything at that point. And I was working probably about 1,500 job orders at a time.
Wow.
So it was quite intense. Some of them needed more intensive services. For example, we would host job fairs for them. Obviously, I got to work with all of the greenfield sites coming into the area. That was always exciting. We always did a lot of promo and big events for them. And I don't know, just something about the manufacturing. When I was looking, I also did a lot with labor market information. So I pulled like labor market information to support local economic development efforts with their planning, succession planning, and also prospecting and recruiting companies. And when you're going through all these labor market profiles and you're looking at the areas that you're working in and you're looking at the opportunities that are provided, manufacturing really stood out to me because it was always better paying. And I'm like, yeah, let's get you paid, let's get you on this career path to manufacturing. And I was just very inspired from it. And then also being in plants and seeing the equipment, seeing the automation, I love it. So now I am only dedicated to manufacturing.
It's a pretty addicting sector for sure. I started out in it as a technical writer and just helping companies, edit and copyright most of their product and service releases. And then when I started writing more storytelling articles for manufacturing, really getting to the roots of why companies were coming up with these concepts and the differences that they were making, I was hooked right away and I haven't left since. I tried leaving, but higher education was not the place for me. So I had to come back to manufacturing. But one of the main reasons why I was interested in having a conversation with you is because, as you know, there's this giant skills gap occurring within manufacturing, and it's getting pretty serious, in my opinion. I think if we aren't successful in filling up these available positions, and if we don't start diversifying our workforce, we're going to be in a really serious situation on a national scale. So I've already talked to several companies who are, having the same problem of recruiting the next generation workforce. And some of them are even having the challenge of retaining, new recruitments as they come in. So from a recruiting agency perspective, what have been some of the biggest challenges with the manufacturers that you work with when they're trying to recruit and retain the next generation workforce? Where is their biggest pain point?
That's such a great question. Thanks for bringing that up, Meaghan. So I've really identified 3 major pain points with recruiting. Sourcing the talent that you need, right? That has the skill set. Manufacturing is a huge ecosystem. There's many industries within manufacturing, right? So you've got like metals, you've got automotive, you've got pulp paper. They all require different skill sets than
Right.
The others. So trying to figure out what those transferable skills are and where they can be applied within a different industry. That certainly will give job seekers more opportunities, and also making that aware to your hiring management and your HR staff that that's kind of the skill set that you're looking for. So technical sourcing, right? Also qualifying. So once you have this person, how do you identify that they have, in fact, these skill sets from a recruitment point of view, without maybe doing like an intense assessment like the Ramsey or the Wonderlic or something like that, right? So really being able to let that candidate tell you and show you and walk you through the process of how they work and how they apply their skills is very important. And then lastly, just providing an overall stellar candidate experience. This is, I don't like to talk about myself, but I will say this is where this is where I can brag. I feel like, because that is something that I provide for my clients and my candidates, is an absolutely amazing candidate experience. And just being that person they can ask questions to, that will advocate on their behalf, that will walk them through the process, that will pull the labor market information and send over to them, that I'm kind of like their on-call person. So being able to provide that experience in whatever way that you can make feasible for your own company is certainly something that you should try to do, because the competition is fierce, for sure.
So this is going to be more of a personal question for you. What differentiates you from the other recruitment agencies that are out there? Because you have your larger platforms like Monster and Indeed, and you can put an ad on LinkedIn or Facebook. What differentiates you from those other possibilities that manufacturers can take on in terms of trying to find the right talent for their company?
So that's a great question. So here's the thing. So this is kind of my philosophy on recruiting talent and using job boards and things like that. I mean, I personally still use job boards. Don't get me wrong. You can still find great talent in job boards. But what you're experiencing right now is a candidate-driven market, and really being able to understand that. It's kind of like the ball is in their court, right? So they have opportunities. They're not really looking for employment right now. I know that everybody is kind of talking about COVID and like the great resignation and what have you. But I mean, it's very important to keep in mind that manufacturing was deemed a necessary industry, sector at the beginning of COVID. So it's never really stopped. And in fact, it's probably increasing. And, if we can kind of circumvent the supply chain shortage that's incoming, then it's going to, keep increasing for that reason. So, just keeping that in mind, they're not out there looking on Indeed. They're not out there looking on LinkedIn. So what I really try to do is I try to network as much as I can. I'm always asking for referrals. So if I hit you up for referrals ever, I expect that. And I'm always just trying to come up with creative ways to attract talent with like video job descriptions instead of just having the regular job description. Utilize that as well. And then also interactive job descriptions. That's kind of an interactive PDF. It tells you all about the company and kind of tells you their story. And also some labor market information in there for extra added measure. So if that helps.
So everyone knows, if they've been tuning into Maven since its inception, that my main goal has been to try to recruit and attract generations of women, because as studies have shown, we represent anywhere between 28 and 30% of the entire workforce in manufacturing and engineering. And my goal is to get that percentage higher, and actually maybe more so than the men. Yes, I'm very competitive, so I want us to win, of course. But I've had a lot of conversations with different manufacturing companies, and there seems to be a list of reasons or theories of why women aren't attracted to manufacturing and engineering. There is a company that I'll be interviewing later on in Mavens. They're actually out in Maine. And one of the things that they discussed with me is they're like, it's not that we don't want a diverse set of workforce here. It's just that with Maine and our population level, there isn't a lot of fish to pick from in the pond. And even when we do try to reach out, most of our candidates are men. They do have 4 or 5 women on their shop floor, which is the most that they have seen since they've been open. And they're trying to make, those steps to improving and bringing in more of a diverse set of employees. But it's kind of hard for them when they don't have a lot to pick from. And they're trying to find, answers to that problem or solutions to that problem. In your experience, what are some of the things that manufacturers can do to, get in touch with women who might not be within their talent pool in their community, but they might be out there in, the ocean of things? I'm terrible with analogies, and I'm trying my hardest here, but, what can they do to reach out to more women who are interested in engineering and manufacturing, but might not be within their pool of talent in their community, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, what I would, propose is to work with your different local agencies. So like your career centers, because there's always the opportunity for training and upskilling your workforce. There's dedicated funding for that. So working with them and trying to create some training initiatives that, include women. And then also reaching out to organizations such as the Society of Women Engineers, trying to find your local chapter, and working with them, partnering with them, partner with your universities, partner with your tech schools. I think that it's going to be a collaborative effort. But I really think, if we could do more on an educational level and really get into the middle schools and the high schools, and advocate there, that's really going to set manufacturing up for longevity, really, in the future. So those are my top tips for sure.
I know that I know that some schools too, they some of the teachers that I've talked to, they have experienced some budget cuts for the tech education programs that they offer. And, it's a question that I would like to maybe bring to a higher level outside of this conversation to like state legislators or government officials and ask, why is that a thing? Like, why is that happening? And hopefully with all of these news reports and stuff with the Biden administration of wanting to reshore more manufacturing here, especially in terms of semiconductors and chips, hopefully that will make government officials throughout the nation kind of reconsider where they're making budget cuts and where they can start allocating some of those funds more into tech ed classes, because I feel like that's, where it starts. Even before high school, I think there's a way that we can include some of these manufacturing concepts, especially with robotics and automation, at the middle school level. Because who doesn't like playing with Legos or robots? When I was a kid, I know that most of my sisters and I, we were exposed to like Barbies and stuff too, but we had brothers who had Legos and Rector sets, so we wanted to play with those too. But I think if you bring that into the schools more, that would help expose them to these opportunities in engineering and manufacturing. I've also had conversations with manufacturers who are doing things a little untraditionally per se. One company is HM Manufacturing. Nicole Walters is the president and owner of that company, and she does a lot on TikTok. And another thing that I noticed about you is you're on the Clubhouse app a lot. And I thought that was interesting because when I initially joined that app, I got overwhelmed because there was just so much going on within the app. But you developed a group for Industry 4.0, I believe, on there, and you do some other things. So can you kind of explain your thought process behind joining that app and how you're having success with it? Because I feel like some people who aren't used to that app and the enormity of it, because it is huge. There's a lot of groups on there and a lot of conversations going on. I had to shut my phone off at one point because I was getting notifications
I'm laughing because we've all been there.
4 a.m, and I was like, "Who is up?" And I forgot that it was like a global app. But where have you found success on using applications like that to help advocate for manufacturing and engineering and recruiting the next generation of talent for some of these manufacturers that you're working with?
That's a great question. So on Clubhouse, so I just kind of randomly strolled into Industry 4.0, to be honest with you. I remember back when I first joined Clubhouse, you couldn't just willy-nilly make a club. You had to apply and then wait and be approved. So I started, I just started using the app. I got an invitation and started using the app and found these rooms that were being led by like Anton Alexander and Ryan Treese, Alan Wu. So several different people like that, Martin Cloak. And they were always having these really in-depth, cool conversations about manufacturing and different like machine learning and AI and things like that. And I just was like, oh, this looks good, So I just randomly started going in. And then, they kept inviting me up to speak. And I was like, I can't hang, you know what I'm saying? I can't hang with them. And finally one day I was like, I think Alan invited me up and I was like, hey, I'm here. And then they invited me to join the I-40 Club and really get involved at that level. And it's just been really fun getting to know them. And they're all just such a great group. And, I just heard them talk about these things like, how are we going to advance Industry 4.0 and digital twins and machine learning and AI, but more focused AI, not as much as like AI, but how AI is being used for manufacturing and how we're going to, how Industry 4.0 is going to change the landscape of the workforce. And I've thought that for a long time. I mean, it's very evident that, if you work in manufacturing, the progression will be towards increased automation and then subsequently higher, more technical roles. Mm-hmm. So just utilizing that app to talk about and advocating for manufacturers to get on board with that and really try to redefine their processes and adopt these methodologies because it's kind of coming one way or the other. Like I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's such an interesting technology and the way that machine learning occurs to just kind of customize different things for certain people, I think is really impressive too. Because if you go, there's a company that I spoke with not too long ago, and they're trying to make quoting a lot easier for manufacturers. And it has so much to do with AI and just learning, what a manufacturer orders and how much. And I'm really excited to learn more about that process, because quoting, especially during a supply chain disruption, is not an easy task for manufacturers. Like, it gets pretty annoying and pretty challenging. Tracy,
and Purdue University is doing some really good stuff with their programs, their training programs, but they have a program dedicated to no-code apps for manufacturers. It's pretty cool.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to take a look into that. I didn't know that was something they were doing. Now that you mentioned Purdue, I wanted to bring up a high school. It's called McDowell High School, and they built a manufacturing academy, which I thought was really cool. And what they do is they actually have manufacturers working with the students at the high school, and they're producing products for different customers out. So they'll get an order. So it's hands-on learning, but they're actually producing products for actual customers, and it's coming out of the high school.
Very
it's
cool.
Super cool. Yeah. So I want to contact them and see if maybe I can visit their high school, because I think it's like actually bringing a shop floor into the high school, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Tracy Spencer, thank you, Tracy, for your comment. She said the state of Ohio is looking to make teacher externships mandatory and manufacturing to share information about manufacturing careers with non-technical teachers. It's not in legislation yet. That's really interesting. Another challenge that I've heard quite frequently too, specifically within high schools, is that they're having a shortage of teachers. So as a recruiting company, are you getting any kind of inquiries about teaching positions specifically within tech education? Or are you more focused on actual manufacturing positions that manufacturers are looking to fill?
Yeah, I'm more focused on actual manufacturing positions, so like engineering roles, technical roles, administrative, more insect with that ecosphere. Yeah.
So in terms of applications like Clubhouse, what are some of your insights or tips for manufacturers to help them attract a more diverse set of workforce? Because I know a lot are hesitant to try new things like Clubhouse or different apps like TikTok and Snapchat, which I can understand. But at the same time, when we're facing this skills gap, and our main target audience to try to attract more employees into the sector is the next generation, the younger generation, who are frequently on these apps and using them and creating videos themselves and looking for content to watch and kind of copy. You kind of have to think outside of the box. So what's your advice in terms of what to try next to try to recruit the next generation workforce?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll share a personal story, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I remember my first time seeing a robot. I was 25 years old. So at that point, I'd already, I've had a bachelor's degree in public administration and communications. But I saw the robot. I was in a plant, was fortunate enough to see the robot. And it was like, I was like, whoa. I mean, it was like Cupid with the hearts and the arrows and all that stuff. I was like, hi, like that was me. And I'd never seen anything like that before. So my biggest advice to you, if you're interested in inspiring the next generation of the manufacturing workforce, is to show all that good stuff off. What you can do is you can take, videos of your manufacturing process, and some testimonials from your workers. Take that, make a little video, take it to the job fair with you, and let people see that. Or if you're having them come in for an in-person interview, have them walk the floor first and show them, what you're working with, because I mean, it's very interesting. All of that kind of stuff is very interesting. Not just like the automotive Phoenix and everything, like rolling mills are, I mean, that's cool. Like that's awesome, but just showing that off and then incorporating like wearables, VR technology, all of that good stuff into your process in some way.
I think a lot of manufacturers have a misconception that creating video is a hard thing to do. I think editing is more difficult than creating. But because we all have smartphones that are really excelled in the camera and the filming processes now, like I could probably be a professional photographer, not really, but just the quality of the video and the photo on our phones, that's really all you need to start. There is a CNC machinist on LinkedIn who I admire because he's actually using TikTok to create some of his machining videos, and they're becoming a hit. And not only that, he's on TikTok, which is getting in front of the next generation and getting them excited. So I feel like just, coming up with a plan and maybe say to yourself, I'm going to create these 3 videos and just do it off of your phone. There are editing platforms that are available that make it easy. I do not personally like editing video because I'm really slow at it and bad at it, but I'm finding things that are helping make it easier. Like Capawig is one that I use, and that helps insert captions in it. But just starting off, I agree 100%. Kids like visual stuff, and that's what gets them excited. There's a commercial that Rogue does, Rogue Fitness, and I only know this because I am in CrossFit, but they're showing the process of how their barbells are made. And at first, you're kind of wondering what the commercial is about. It's a 10-minute long commercial. And yes, I watched the entire thing because that's how good it was. But it starts in the mill where it's showing how the metal is melted down, and it's got like all of the molted metal just splashing up, and it shows the giant bucket, and then it gets into like it forming and everything. It's such a cool commercial. I should share it on my page just so everyone can see what I'm talking about. But just something like that. And yeah, this is what you use every day when you're working out, if you're in a CrossFit, and this is where it comes from. It's such a cool video. But what are some things that you think would help get more women involved in engineering and manufacturing? Like, where do you think we're ending up short there? Because I've read a study where some job descriptions need to change because the way that they're written attract more men than they do women. So like, for example, if you write out all of your like qualifications and stuff, if a woman thinks she's only like 60% qualified, she won't apply. She has to feel like she's 100% qualified, versus a man where if he's like feeling he's 30% qualified, he'll still apply because he thinks he can learn on the job. What are some changes with that sort of stuff can manufacturers start incorporating to maybe attract more women to manufacturing and engineering?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the job descriptions, there's a lot there's a lot to be said about regular job descriptions, but I really try to stick with the hard skills.
Okay.
I try to stick with the hard skills and just kind of put it out there. Hey, yeah, I'm using like Allen Bradley controls, or I'm using Siemens S7 or whatever.
Okay.
That's really what I try to do, because it's just more effective to do that. Because anybody that is going to apply is going to know kind of what you're talking about. And then when you go back through your ATS and you're cross-referencing the resume with the job description, then it's a lot easier to differentiate what you're looking for. But I think, really kind of changing the conception that manufacturing is labor intensive or that it's hard, I think is very important. I also think that we need to start having the business conversation with manufacturing. So instead of just having the conversation of, this is the product that we make. Yeah, I mean, have that conversation, but also include like your succession plan. So like, this is the path, and this is where we can help you along the path, and this is where we would ideally like for you to be, because manufacturing is a business, right? I mean, there's lots of different opportunities. Obviously, you can work in different parts of the business. I mean, I have one of my closest friends that is also a client of mine. She started working on the floor, and then she's now a client, and she's an HR manager. So
Very
there's
cool.
definitely some opportunities to advance, but that needs to be kind of made clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then obviously incorporating more tech into your process, and making it more, kind of removing that whole aspect again of that it's like dirty and dangerous and dark. So
I mean,
what do you think?
some of it's still dirty, but some women like that. And I think one of the big misconceptions is that it's still dark and dangerous and dull. But with all the automation and the robotics coming up, I mean, it's really about advancing technologies, and we need a lot of there's still a need for like welders and tool makers and machinists. Um, but there's still a lot of room too for people that want to do CAD design engineering. There's a lot of room for that.
Electrical engineering.
Yeah, especially that. And that was one of the things when I went to the high school a couple weeks ago that we're doing this live event for. They were learning how to wire a frame for a house. And they were just like, I don't know, if I build my own house, I know how to wire it. That's all they knew about electrical engineering. And I'm like, no, there's so much more that you can do with this. And I was kind of disappointed that it was
Exactly.
all guys in the class, but I'm hoping that with these conversations, I can start inspiring more women to join some of those opportunities that they might have thought they weren't a fit for, because electrical engineering is in automation, it's in robotics, it's in CNC machining, it's pretty much everywhere manufacturing is.
Yeah.
So it would be a great opportunity for people to get involved. Tracy also said that there's another great recruiting tool for women in manufacturing that was just released in conjunction with Mike Rowe, Trading Up, our case for trade schools. The video focuses on young women in welding.
Oh, very cool.
That's amazing. I'm going to have to check that out. Thanks so much, Tracy. And then we have Eddie on here. Hi, Eddie, who says, preach, Ann.
Oh, thanks, Eddie.
He has so much energy. I love that guy. Well, before I let you go, Ann, is there any other piece of advice that you would like to give manufacturers in terms of when they're trying to recruit the next generation workforce that we haven't covered on? Any like golden piece of advice that would really help them make that next move to get younger generations on board with manufacturing and engineering? Other than maybe hire a consultant or someone like yourself to help with the process?
Yeah, well, no, sure, definitely. Call me if you need me. But I think that there's definitely some things that you can do. You just have to, first of all, we have to kind of all get on board and get on the same page, right? I think that's the biggest challenge. And then understanding and utilizing your partners effectively. So, I mean, every area is going to have like your workforce development department, right? Work with them, work with your tech schools, work with your high schools. Just this is a all hands on deck situation to me. So, collaborate as much as you can. And then from there, just be open-minded and always be willing to meet people where they are. So if those people are the younger generation and they're on Discord and TikTok, then Discord and TikTok it is, right? If they are on LinkedIn, then they're on LinkedIn. I mean, but always be willing to meet them where they are. If they're in high schools, go to the high schools. So that's my biggest advice.
I think LinkedIn is a challenge because a lot of students that I've talked to, including my daughter, I'm still trying to convince her to get on LinkedIn because she's about ready to graduate this year. They don't see the value of it yet if they're just in school, because it's more of a recruiting tool in some cases where you're trying to get on there and network with professionals and experts that are already in the industry. So I really don't see younger generations on LinkedIn unless they're like just about to graduate high school and they were told to do it, or they're already in college and they're looking for internships and apprenticeships. I don't know if you've seen anything different in terms of LinkedIn, but I think that's a good step too for some teachers to take to really encourage students to get on LinkedIn if they really want to look for, the right employers to work for.
Yeah. And I think, I really think that there's a lot of value, obviously, in networking. So, teaching the younger generations how to network effectively.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I had known, 10 years ago how to network the way that I network now. And I'm sure I'll wish in another 10 years.
Yeah.
So would have wished that I would have known more then, but just kind of helping them understand and, be involved with their local community, be involved in different networks and kind of instilling that in them is very important, I think.
I think that, and you nailed it on the head earlier in our conversations, like manufacturers have to get comfortable to putting themselves in front of students and the community. They have to kind of change their strategy a little bit and not just think about, okay, we need to get in front of our customers. They also need to get in front of their community and stuff, and kind of bridge that gap as well. Things are getting
definitely
more work. There's a LinkedIn here, I don't know who it is. Ann is very strong in relationship building. I don't know who that is. Thank you for that compliment.
Well, thank you.
Well, this is great, Ann. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Mavens of Manufacturing. If anyone's having a hard time recruiting their next workforce development, where can they get a hold of you? How can they connect with you?
Sure. Well, you can check my website out, of course. But I, as a recruiter, am on LinkedIn and live there. So just shoot me a DM.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Ann. And thank you to everyone that stayed in tune for this week's episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Join us again next week. I have an untraditional interviewee next week. It's actually Chris Greater, if you heard of him. Justice man. So we had some technical difficulties there. Next week, join us for another live Mavens episode. Like I mentioned before, we have Chris who's going to be joining us. He's going to provide some tips on how you can advocate for women in engineering and manufacturing as a man. So that would be really good. And he's going to provide some storytelling about how he tries to get his 3 daughters interested in engineering and manufacturing. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us and being patient with us through all the technical difficulties. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye. This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.